The first step in factoring is always to look for a greatest common factor. Is there a number that can go into all three of these terms that I could factor out? Next, I'm going to look at my last term and think about what two numbers can multiply to get negative 35. It could either be 1 and 35 or 5 and 7. Now I have to ask what's going to add to my middle term. Neither of these is going to add to negative 2, but if I made it a negative 7, that would add to a negative 2, and the product would be my negative 35 here. So there's my answer. It doesn't matter which of these boxes I put the 5 in or the 7 in, and I'm going to take my last term and put it here, and my first term, discounting the GCF, is going to go here. Now I look at what is the number that can multiply into both x squared and 5x. I can factor out an x there. And x times x is x squared, so x times what is 5x? I'll take a look at my columns now. X times x is x squared, x times what is negative 7x? And then we're going to double check. Does negative 7 times negative 5 equal negative 35? Yes, it does. So this is my solution. There's my first term, x plus 5, and here's my second term, x minus 7. Don't forget about that GCF is also in our answer. Now let's take a look at an area model where I need to factor when the leading coefficient is not a 1. There's no greatest common factor here, and when we look for what multiplies, we're not just looking at the last term, but we actually look at the product of the last term and the first term. So what multiplies to 2 times negative 12, or negative 24, and what adds to the middle term, which is a 5. Here are all the factors of 24. Which one can you add to a 5 if you include a negative? This one. And we want a positive 5, so that means that the 3 is going to be the negative. Those numbers get entered into our area model. It doesn't matter which diagonal you put them in. And I'll enter the leading coefficient and the first term and the last term. And now we factor out. What goes into both 2x squared and negative 3x? The positive x. X times what is 2x squared? 2x. 2x times what is 8x? That's going to be a 4. 4 times what is negative 12? And that's going to be a negative 3. And then we're going to double check it. Negative 3 times x does equal negative 3x squared. So I'm just looking at each of the columns and the rows to figure out what multiplies to get each of these numbers. So our final answer is y equals this factor times this factor.